Brought to you by...
We're here to build because at the end of the day, we're truly Ugandan.
A very warm welcome and a very good evening. Welcome to our first edition of UBC News tonight on this 13th day of March 2022. Now, before we delve into tonight's bulletin, let's first take a look at the top stories of the night.
Brought to you by...
How to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Stories tonight, Museveni tasks religious leaders to preach prosperity. Freshly appointed envoys to government installations. Over 2,000 Chankwanzi district residents evicted. And Busitema University gazets 25 acres of land for sports complex.
Was brought to you by...
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Good evening once again and welcome to UBC News Tonight. I'm Lauryn Kazimoto and Muhammad Mugalu on sign language interpretation. We start off this news bulletin with President Yoweri Museveni has urged religious leaders to take part in eradicating poverty in the country. This was during a service organized by a team of bishops from Central Buganda Anglican Diocese led by Bishop Michael Loboa at the presidential country home in Chisozi, Gomba district. Museveni first donated 300 million Uganda shillings and cows to Buganda Anglican Bishops and Wives Association to help the senior church workers when they are still active and when they retire. He then asked them to take part in government household poverty eradication programs. The president stated that he is very pleased knowing that believers in all denominations stopped sleeping and resorted to work. The president promised to support the bishops financially with tools like excavators and bush clearers to improve their standards of living. He asked them to embrace commercial agriculture. Bishop Emeritus of Central Buganda Diocese, the Right Reverend Jackson Matovu, prayed for Russia and Ukraine. He asked God to intercede in their issue, help them settle their grievances amicably and also enable them to live in peace and harmony. The First Lady Janet Museveni welcomed the bishops and thanked them for taking time to pray for the president, all leaders and the citizens of Uganda. Over 2,000 residents in Chankwanzi district remain homeless after being evicted from their villages by a woman claiming to be a wife of a former army chief. This is in spite of a recent government edict against any more evictions. We have the details.
Though President Yoweri Museveni and the Minister for Land recently issued directives against land evictions, some land claimants in Chankwanzi district are doing the opposite. A case in point is where 2,000 persons are being evicted violently from a 60 square miles piece of land in Chankwanzi.
Yandika na kaiga na kuavula chenkana tumuzise wano tukulidde wano ngalidde kuno ebbange eriwera naye nga
nkuliddeko nga batugamba nti ettaka lino bajjajjaffe nga batugamba nti ettaka lino lyaki lya Bwakabaka era ne tulibeerako nga tetulina muntu yenna atukijjanya nga tukolagana bulungi nnyo ne Mengo.
Residents are worried of famine after their gardens were destroyed. They allege that there was no eviction order provided before the eviction.
Embeera yatugwako mu kiifuifu kintu kye twategeera ne bajja ne basenda emmere yaffe yonna abaana mbalina abawerako.
Eyo nga bw'ogiraba gye tulimu mu mbeera ya nnaku kubanga okulya naawe emmere ogirabye nga bw'otambudde.
Body was informed about this action.
A wife of a late prominent army officer is accused of being behind the eviction.
Ng'ettaka lya Bwakabaka, ettaka lya Daudi Chwa, era tugenze okulaba ng'ono omukyala alonda Nyakayirima yajja n'asenda ebintu bino byonna.
Saba Land Board ya Buganda kusobola kulwana kulaba nti etuddiza ettaka obutuuze bwaffe. Abatuuze tubeereko. Yaziikako kuno jjajjaawe n'aziikako taata we so nasaako ne baganda be n'abaana be okumugamba nti essaawa eno aveewo agendewa.
Ogwe pulezidenti w'eggwanga lino nkusaba owulire omulanga gw'abannakyalo naffe abatuuze kuba tuli mu lumi bw'amaanyi.
The disputed land sits on 6 square miles and houses 10 villages that include Chiyuni, Butikiro, Dagaza, Cherere, Chamlama, not to mention all. Ivan Juko, Deborah Namamonde, UBC News.
Uganda has marked the World Tuberculosis Day in a marathon around Kampala. Runners took up to 2, 5 and 10-kilometer races in the awareness campaign. Take a look.
The minister prepares to say one.
Hundreds of people gathered at the Ministry of Health in a tuberculosis awareness marathon to mark the World TB Day. Led by Justice Kasule Lumumba, Minister Office of the Prime Minister, General Duties, who represented the Prime Minister, emphasis was on the laxity about the disease, despite killing a number on a daily basis.
It's the first of its kind to have a marathon to sensitize people, to show efforts together, to work together to fight this TB, locally here but also internationally. In addition to sensitization, to encourage also men to come and be part of it, because statistics show that women go for testing, women can't check, but men are so slow when it comes to this, and yet it affects both men and women.
The Minister of Health, General Thacheng, highlighted the timeliness of the campaign meant to create awareness among the public.
One is to create awareness to the general public, because many other diseases have several partners that support it and support awareness creation. But there are very few partners in TB, and people tend to think that TB is not a killer, but TB remains a killer.
The gong was rung and off the runners competed in 2, 5 and 10-kilometer race, urging all Ugandans to invest in TB and leprosy prevention. Currently, the Ministry of Health is mobilizing 1 billion shillings to construct a TB isolation center in Iganga Hospital.
Uganda have increased on the funding to buy diagnostic machines, equipment like X-rays, like gene experts, so that we can detect each and every TB in all Uganda. That's what we are doing. Thanks.
TB is an airborne disease usually caused by a bacterium that affects the lungs but can also affect other parts of the body. Most infections do not have symptoms known as latent tuberculosis. According to the Ministry of Health, Uganda has an estimated 90,000 TB cases, of which about 60% are co-infected with HIV and AIDS. The 2010 Global World Health Organization report ranked Uganda 16th among the 22 TB high-burden countries.
Karamoja women find it difficult to access their gardens, mining areas and bushes for charcoal and firewood due to the fear of being raped and killed. They want government to ensure constant peace in the region.
A Karamoja woman is married off between 12 and 14 years. her journey as a breadwinner of the family starts.
So even when the child falls sick at night, it is you to get that child and carry and you move, but the man will remain asleep.
She now starts taking over responsibilities of sweeping the home, looking for water, food, taking care of the children, building, fencing the home, among others.
A woman is entitled to provide food for the family. Secondly, it is a woman who is supposed to build a home for you and your husband to stay.
Sabina Lukowa, 65 years, a resident of Moroto district, explains that their day as Karimojong women starts 3 a.m.
Goes and collects some stones, then and comes and bangs them.
Some women start their journey to the bush as early as 3 a.m. to look for firewood, burn charcoal, stone quarrying, brewing of ebutia or ikwete out of cassava flour and sorghum to sell and get food for their families.
After that, someone will come and buy those stones, then she buys food.
Yeah. Sometimes they give her 2,000 and she goes and uses it for buying portion.
After securing firewood or charcoal, these women and their girls move more than 10 kilometers with firewood and charcoal on their heads to towns like Moroto to look for customers. Surprisingly, after all this distance, their bundle of firewood or charcoal is sold between 500 shillings to 2,000 shillings. These traumatizing moments of playing the role of men often happen when their husbands are either lying under the tree all seated with fellow men taking local brew.
Or goes to sit with his friend. In the evening or when he comes, he has to ask for food. You have to make sure there is food for that husband of yours to eat at home. If it is not there, then in the evening you are ready of domestic violence within the house.
Sometimes they ask, why didn't you return back the balance for what again?
In some areas, women trek for more than 10 kilometers to look for water in the water-stressed Karamoja. After selling, they buy food for their families and return home to start preparing meals.
And she just tells the man that this is the food I've bought, let's eat this food since there is no balance.
However, most husbands come back and they need money from their women. Once she's not submissive, the beating starts. In most Karimojong communities, women are ignorant about their rights and are not allowed to participate in decision-making, neither planning for the family.
They are in areas that they are really not buying, especially still on the areas of women participation in their elders forum called cricket.
Although women in Karamoja work more than 12 hours a day, they are not entitled to own any animal or piece of land.
In Karamoja, for a woman to own an asset, you can be there, even a man can give you that this is your land, but it's your land just because the man has told you, but you don't own. You can't say even, I'm going to sell maybe this cow to get some money and get some support somewhere.
Despite the challenges Mahjong women face in taking care of their families and homes, Dr. Chitutu advised women in the habit of drinking to stop or else risk increasing gender-based violence, negligence of families, among others, in their homes.
Now, the drinking of alcohol, when I saw the statistics in the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the women are drinking even more than the men.
As the world commemorates the International Women's Day, women in Karamoja are still tied under cultural norms of their society. Brian Tumwinebiaruhanga, Maureen Iga, UBC News.
It's quite sad to hear this is happening in the Karamoja region to women, overworking them. Okay, but moving on, the influence of money in Uganda's politics remain a partial blame for the contribution to the infights in the opposition wing, as stakeholders are worried of premature harvest of the fruits of democracy in Uganda. The recent scandal is the fund allegedly secured to finance activities of political players under the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, which has instead caused mayhem in the political space in Uganda. Take a look.
About 10 years ago, the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue was formed to cultivate a fruitful environment for multi-party democracy in Uganda. Ideally, the members who share iPod Roundtable include political parties with representation in parliament.
Uncontrollable violence should be left to animals. Human beings should have dialogue.
Spearheaded by the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, the 2010 founded iPod aims at improving governance, human rights and observance of the rule of law in Uganda, among others.
Dialogue is good because we can compare our visions. The vision of the NRM is very well stated. What is the vision of the others?
Amidst several challenges, some achievements have been realized.
Parties are trained on basic organizational management issues.
President Yoweri Museveni, who also the chairperson of the National Resistance Movement, does not hesitate to share what he describes as the doctrine of NRM to engage in fruitful and constructive talks with his opponents.
But as the Honorable Mao, who is apparently a quiet student of our tactics, reminded me, we always make a distinction between the misleaders and the misled. Unfortunately, people have really neglected dialogue. I don't know why. It's a very big mistake. I even talked to Kony. I didn't want to talk to Kony, but when the people insisted, we said, okay.
Ultimately, as the Uganda People's Congress, I want to see Uganda in a better place. And I'll do everything in my efforts to see that happen.
Despite being a qualified applicant, the Forum for Democratic Change has continued to dodge iPod engagements.
Because Mr. Museveni, and that's why as if this we said, we know those meetings with Museveni to hell, we will not come. Because the main subject matter he does not want to discuss.
In 2021, a vibrant young breed under a pressure group maneuvered into the political space in Uganda, attaining the highest number of opposition leaders in parliament after the general elections. The Karamoja-based National Unity Platform Party, led by celebrated musician Kyagulanyi Robert Sentamu, also known as Bobby Wine, followed the footsteps of FDC and decided to boycott iPod.
So if they're saying now they're opening a new chapter, iPod will be relevant, we wish them well. Discuss whatever you discuss. If it turns out to be good for the country, all of us as a country shall thank you, but don't force anyone to be part of iPod.
Despite NUP and FDC shunning iPod, the other 5 political parties having representation in parliament continue to push for the iPod agenda, including enhancing cooperation and collaboration across party lines by prioritizing Uganda as a nation. Recently, President Yoweri Museveni met with Secretary Generals of the respective political parties to iron out some of their concerns.
Those who don't believe in dialogue, that is their approach. Let's see whether they achieve. Leadership is about talking about the tough problems that we face together. So truly, we miss the FDC when they boycott the summit, yet they attend all the other meetings. And truly, we miss NUP.
In the last iPod summit in Munyonyo, the leaders used the platform to agitate for an increment funding for political parties as provided by the law under the Political Parties and Organization Act. Parliament did not hesitate, and in its supplementary budget, Schedule number 1 for the financial year 2021-2022, 35 billion shillings was secured to Electoral Commission. However, Parliament, through the adopted majority report of the Budget Committee, indicated that the iPod funds were for political parties as required under iPod arrangement. This was also contrary to the letter initially addressed to the Speaker of Parliament by the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, which instead proposed for the funds for political parties. At a later stage, questions arose as how IPOD was incubated into the Budget Committee final report, which was approved to support IPOD.
Money for political parties should have been appropriated under the Political Parties and Organizations Act. Unfortunately, I think, and I want to admit, because I was in Parliament, we made a mistake to include the word IPOD, because it has caused unnecessary confusion.
FDC received its share, according to the Political Parties Act.
Yes, we did. We received 1.7 billion shilling, because that is our numbers in Parliament.
On reaching out to the Electoral Commission, which received the funds, Paul Bukenya, the spokesperson, distanced Electoral Commission's status from IPOD, saying they disbursed the funds in February this year as mandated by the Political Parties and Organization Act.
IPOD is a matter that we cannot comment about as Electoral Commission because we do not manage that program. It is another arrangement that exists between willing parties which have representation in Parliament. But on our part, our task and our job is to make sure that those parties that have representation in Parliament are funded, and when their money comes, we pass it on to them.
When were the last funds disbursed?
The last time that we sent out money to political parties was in February this year.
Leaders under IPOD during the meeting of President Museveni and Secretary Generals presented the accountability of how funds were shared. President Yoweri Museveni proposed further that political party which acts contrary to the IPOD cause should have a budget cut.
Because they can bring arguments that although we are not in IPOD, give us our share. They may, legally, if you don't capture it in the law. Because the idea is, although you have differences, but please work for stability. And how do you come to stability? By sharing some common positions in a forum. And the only forum is this one.
Norbert Mao, the DP president, is at the epitome of alleging that the funds pocketed by the political parties were instead of the arrangement of IPOD. This has since seen Mao in a daily attack through his Twitter account describing National Unity Platform as hypocrites.
I have been provoked. It was never my intention really to engage in this battle. So it is a provocation that has led to this timing.
There is no money for IPOD we've ever received because we don't belong to IPOD. Okay?
So our interest is that political parties follow the law, and the platform for resolving issues is the National Consultative Forums, where actually all parties are represented.
So the Electoral Commission has not done its work, rendering the National Consultative Forum useless.
The influence of money in politics is beyond reasonable doubt becoming a distressing new reality in the shared democracy of Uganda. Most political players have linked taxpayers' money to individuals in a bid to win the hearts of the electorate.
I think those are hypocrites. If every money from government is Museveni money, then all those in parliament who earn salaries should be saying no to that money.
But this is taxpayers' money. I pay taxes. You think my money that they deduct from my salary is Museveni's money? Each Ugandan surrenders part of his money to run the country called Uganda. It is not government, it's not Museveni's money, it is taxpayers' money.
It is unpredictable to tell as to when the infights in the opposition in Uganda will aid in producing positive results to respective political agenda.
So, these are the things I'm talking about, and Ugandans should know. Have you seen them disputing what I'm saying? They keep on saying Mao is a pumpkin, that Mao is paid by Museveni. That one now has no currency. They can say whatever they want about me.
Currently, 26 political parties are registered with the Electoral Commission, 7 of them having representatives in Parliament. The political parties with no representation in parliament do not in any way receive funding from government.
So the fight that you see is a normal one. In fact, if there was no fight, then we would not have political parties.
Daniel Mugoya, Gloria Gwitabinji, UBC News.
UBC News Tonight takes a very short break. We return with more stories.
Government of Uganda, through the Uganda Bureau of Statistics UBOS, is undertaking nationwide census mapping aimed at providing an up-to-date list of enumeration areas and administrative units in the country ahead of the National Population and Housing Census of 2023. The UBOS field teams will be using Global Positioning Systems (GPS) for mapping all administrative infrastructure, households and other facilities such as hotels, schools, hospitals and water sources to facilitate production of the updated LC1, parish, sub-county and district area maps showing all the physical features and social amenities. The census mapping will further aid development of a countrywide data for information systems as a pillar for effective implementation of the parish development model. This is to appeal to the entire government leadership, all stakeholders and the general public to support the field teams that will be deployed across the country. Announced by Dr. Chris Ndatira Muchiza, the Executive Director and Chief Statistician. For further clarifications, please contact the Office of the Executive Director on 0755 342 128.
Need to send money to a loved one but you don't have enough on your phone? Have you run out of fuel but you don't have enough money? Do you want to pay for your car or water but have insufficient funds?